Overt narcissist or grandiose narcissism seems easy to deal with in one sense. Like you can see it, you can spot it. You're like, yeah, that person, don't want them in my life. Let's move away from this. But what happens when you've been with an overt, a person you're like, this is definitely a narcissist, and you get rescued or you move on to the next relationship and it ends up being a covert narcissist? Have you ever encountered someone who seemed so charming, so empathetic on the surface, but then manipulative and self centered underneath? Maybe you're struggling to navigate the relationship with someone who exhibits covert narcissistic traits. Now, brief idea just over it is overt and covert narcissists have the same traits. The difference is how they're presented, the difference of how they're actually seen. We've done several videos here on YouTube under Raw Motivations that actually talk about covert narcissism, that go into more of the details. I even have a couple videos that talk about overt versus covert so you can see how they all match up. I'm not going to dive in all those today, but I do have that resource available for you here on YouTube under the Raw Motivations channel. Okay, but then the question is, what do we actually do? How do we actually deal with narcissists when they're in the covert category? Okay, if you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the Narc App, and your guide in the 7-Day Challenge for $7 to help you understand narcissism, reactive abuse, the fog that you're in, to help you move forward in your healing, growth, change, and development. You can access that, or you can talk to me in a coaching scenario, or we can see if you could be a good fit for one of our communities at www.rawmotivations.com. So check that out today. When we talk about this piece of covert narcissism, first I want to just clarify, like, understanding some about what it actually is. Okay, it is the same as narcissistic personality disorder. If anything, it'd be more considered a subset. The thing is, it also isn't clarified in the DSM-5 of like, this is an actual thing. We just have narcissistic personality disorder, and then people have come up with different definitions, covert, overt being one of the biggest ones. Okay, covert is more of a unique aspect of narcissistic personality disorder, wherein like the individuals display an unusual sense of like humility or sensitivity and sometimes vulnerability, and that whole goal is to be able to mask the self-centeredness and the grandiosity. Okay, now this could be along the lines of like, hey, like I know I want to be the center of attention, but if I actually say that, like an overt, if I actually look like I want to be the center of attention, like an overt, then that will look bad in society. So therefore, I'm going to hide it. I'm going to actually shove it down, but I'll do simple things to still make me the center of attention. Did you ever have that one person in your life where you're like, this person hates drama, but then you're like, but there's always drama around them? So like it seems like a little incongruent of like they hate it, but they're still always in it. If they hated it that much, maybe they would be out of it, but no, they're always still in it. Okay, so like that, it's the idea of like, hey, let me be humble, let me be quiet, let me be vulnerable to different things, but what's actually underneath is self-centeredness, grandiosity. Okay, overts are going to be able to exhibit that and just be like blatant arrogance. Covert narcissists might use subtlety and charm to manipulate and control others. What this does is it makes it really, really challenging for you to actually discover their true nature. And you're like, he doesn't seem like a narcissist. He doesn't match up to the normal narcissist. He doesn't scream and yell at me. He just like belittles me quietly behind my back. Like, I don't know if he's actually toxic or not. Okay? A covert narcissist might present themselves as caring, as selfless individual to people in public. But behind closed doors, then what he's actually doing is manipulating you, gaslighting you, in order to maintain control over you. We see this in so many different scenarios. I was talking to a client the other day, and she was well-to-do, like making a decent amount of money, and he wasn't. So as a result, the narcissist, he got with her being like, let me feel like this will make me feel better, but at the same time being like, oh, this doesn't, so let me go and belittle her and bring her down to my level, because he was never going to be at the capacity of being a producer that she was. This aspect doesn't have the narcissist being like this overt of like, you're an awful person. It just has to be like, man, you work so much. Like, I can't believe you value that so much over me. Like, I thought we had a connection. I thought, like, we were working on this, but it seems like all you're obsessed with is work. Maybe you should just, like, come home. You could just be a stay-at-home mom. We could just do this. Like, all these different things. It's small and subtle. And this is why it makes you feel like you're going crazy. Because you're like, I can't actually put my finger on it, but something is off. Something is weird. A really good example with covert is the aspect of, like, getting angry. You might have an overt narcissist that yells and rages and screams at you. And you might have a covert narcissist that's very silent. And then you're like, something's wrong. Something's off. Like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. but they're silent because they're slowly punishing you, and you can feel this energy of anger. You're like, something is wrong. What did I do? You start to feel crazy because of the situation that they're putting you in. Okay, we need to be able to look at like narcissistic traits and like be able to identify them. Like you have to be able to see like, hey, this is like the nuances of it. One of the best books to be able to go over that is going to be The Passive Aggressive Narcissist by Devi Mirza. It talks a lot more of like the covert aspect of what is actually seeing underneath. Okay, the passive aggressive narcissist, the covert passive aggressive narcissist by Devi Mirza. So check that out. Okay. Common traits, like oftentimes you're still going to have the sense of entitlement, need for admiration, lack of empathy, but then you have this passive aggressiveness that a lot of times is inundated in the whole aspect of covert narcissism. And oftentimes as well, the tendency to play the victim of like, I'm going to look like something's wrong. Like everything's wrong because like I'm the victim. Like everyone's attacking me. Everyone's harming me. This was me in a lot of relationships being like, hey, I'm not the one that left the relationship. They left me. Well, it's because I made their life so awful that they actually left me every single time. But I didn't want to view that. I had to be the victim. Okay, so then at that point, I'm like, man, everybody leaves me. I can't believe why people keep leaving me. The whole thought process, trying to switch it around to make myself feel like the victim and play it off as the victim so that I get more people that are like, oh, you're the victim. Let me help you. And I'm like, great. Now I've got more attention. Okay. You see how that works? It's like, it's not being like, oh, pay attention to me, but it's like, man, I'm the victim. And people are like, oh my gosh, let me help you. And I'm like, yeah, great. Pay attention to me. You see, there's a difference there. Okay. That's why like with narcissists, with my channel, with like who I am, I'm like, I don't have that much sympathy for narcissists. I also don't want your sympathy for me. And I also don't want to ever play the victim. Be like, I am who I am. I'm on my own journey and I'm here to be able to help other people along the way. Okay. Now, think of it this way. You might have like a colleague or a friend who always seeks validation for their accomplishments. Okay. On the surface, not that big a deal, right? But when you see this pattern of behavior, you start to also notice that while they're seeking these accomplishments, they're also trying to put other people down. Of like, yeah, my accomplishment is so much bigger. You're like, did you see what I did though? Like I can't believe you didn't like acknowledge that. And so they're slowly exhibiting different pieces of like covert narcissistic traits. You're like, wait a second, something's there. Okay. Now the question is, what do we actually do? How do we actually work through it? Okay. You give a cut and dried answer of like, they're all narcissists, so just deal with it the same way. But want to be able to give you try to give you at least a little nuances, a little different aspects with it. Okay. When we talk about dealing with covert narcissism, it requires really setting and enforcing boundaries in a very good and positive way for yourself. Now, with boundaries, we need to clarify boundaries are for you. They're not for the narcissist. Too many people screw this up and they're like, well, boundaries are rules and regulations that I'm applying on another person so they actually conform to the things I want them to do. No, that just sounds like a lot of mainstream Christianity, just conform to the image you're supposed to be in versus having a connection with another person, okay? Now, when it comes to this, you're putting in boundaries in your life to protect you of where that person's going to go. This might mean you actually stand up for yourself and be like, hey, appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not going to go that direction. That is not for me. I get that. That's what you want to do. That's not for me, okay? You might want to yell at me. That's not for me. You might want to berate me. That's not for me. This isn't a relationship that I'm going to be in long term if this is how you're going to continue to act. You can act that way, but this is how I'm going to live. Do you see the difference? You're not telling this person, hey, don't yell at me. Okay? That'd be a rule, that'd be a regulation. Okay? But it's also a common gesture of like, hey, like this should happen, right? You shouldn't be yelling at other people. But the same sense, you're saying, hey, this is what I'm limiting for me. I'm limiting my exposure to toxicity. If you want to be toxic, that's on you. And you start to pull back of what you actually do for you. Like you need to be able to see, like you have to start avoiding what's actually happening in the relationship because you're going to fall into different manipulative traps of like trying to control you. And so when you're able to step back and be like, hey, this is me. I'm not making this move. I'm not making this step. I'm not going this direction because this is not who I want to be. It starts to take away a lot of the power and control dynamic from them, from the narcissist, because like you're no longer like playing to their games. Okay, this comes with the aspect of staying true to your values and your priorities. If you're stuck right now and you've been like, I've been going in a cycle in my life from narcissist to narcissist to narcissist to narcissist, like that has a problem of like, let's work on your vision, your values of who you actually are. One of the hands down, one of the biggest strains I see in different relationships is the reason why you keep going to a narcissist is because it's what you're used to. It's because you don't know who you are and because you don't have healthy boundaries. Those are the three things that typically always forces people back into another toxic relationship over and over and over again. Even in their mind, if they know, I don't want this, we still see it happen. Okay? By staying true to your values and priorities, you can help prevent covert narcissists from exerting this influence in your life and end up controlling. Okay? Now, think of it this way. If a covert narcissist attempts to guilt trip you, to do something for them, you just firmly say, like, no, this is my boundary. Like, this is actually what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm not willing to do. Okay? What this does is it means you end up declining what they're doing without giving into the manipulation, without reacting to how they're actually trying to trigger you, without responding in a way that puts you in a negative light. You're just saying, like, no, like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. Okay, it's helping take this piece out. Now that's hard to do because until we work on you actually learning the formula to deal with the triggers, you're always going to be tempted to just lash back out, to respond in a way that's not actually helping you. Okay, healing from this aspect and working on your self-care is one of the biggest things we can do to help you work through this. Part of it is not just engaging in self-care practices, not just getting support, but also helping you rewire the story that you believe. Because otherwise you'll start to believe the narcissist version of reality. You'll start to cater to them. Slowly but surely, they'll keep chipping away till you start believing their reality. If you want help with that, if you want to understand how we start breaking that down step by step by step, go to www.rawmotivation.com. We've got two different options there for you. One is Escape Toxicity, the 7-day challenge, and then one is a Clarity Challenge, the 45-day Clarity Challenge. The Clarity Challenge dives in more in depth to breaking the trauma bond, the rumination, the nuances there, and teaches you in a deeper level the formula of how to break free and rewire your mindset on a day-to-day basis. And if you want to be able to reach out, you can go to www.rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. We'd love to be able to work with you, love to be able to help you in your healing journey today.